Welcome to our latest roundtable of the year. My name is Ann Vasquez, the CEO of EdSource. I'm also the mother of two students in public schools, one of them a soon-to-be graduating senior. In my own home, I've seen some of the intangible effects of dual enrollment, how these classes can help build the students' confidence in seeing themselves as college material. High school students are increasingly finding dual enrollment classes as a way to open the door to a college education. These programs can help families save on college tuition. They also can make access to college more equitable. However, a recent EdSource analysis shows that students who stand to benefit the most don't always have access to these classes. What can be done to make dual enrollment more widely available? And what are successful programs doing to make access more equitable? Today, we'll explore those questions and many more. And lastly, EdSource would not be able to bring us all together for our monthly roundtables if it weren't for the support of our funders. Today, we'd like to give a big thanks to the Stewart Foundation for making today's roundtable possible. Now, onto our introductions. First, I'd like to welcome to our panel, Brianna Zatarain, who began taking college classes as a freshman in high school that offered dual enrollment classes through Bakersfield College. She's now working on a master's degree at National University. Please also welcome Olga Rodriguez, a senior fellow and director of the Public Policy Institute of California Higher Education Center. Next, I'd like to introduce Raquel Torres Retana, a dean at Pasadena City College, where she oversees educational partnerships at several campuses. I'd also like to give a special welcome to James Espinoza, principal at Middle College High School in the San Bernardino Unified School District. Our moderator today is EdSource reporter Ashley Smith. Welcome everyone in the audience, and Ashley, please take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Ann. So I want to start our discussion by first describing what exactly we're talking about. Dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, this can go by a number of different names. So Olga, why don't you explain for us exactly what do we mean when we say dual enrollment?
Yes, thank you. Very important question. And it's a pleasure to be here today to talk about this very important topic on how to increase equitable access to dual enrollment. And this was actually one of the questions that our first research study on dual enrollment set out to answer. We wanted to know and understand what the landscape for dual enrollment is. And dual enrollment in particular is high school students given the opportunity to take college courses while they're in high school. And we found that there are three primary ways dual enrollment is structured in California. And the first one is through the College and Career Access Pathways, and also known as CCAPs. And CCAPs were established by AB 288 and authorized community colleges to establish partnerships with their local K-12 districts to improve access to dual enrollment opportunities, especially for students who have not necessarily are already college bound, or those students who might be underrepresented in higher ed. And unlike other forms of dual enrollment, CCAP courses allow these college courses to be offered at a high school campus exclusively to high school students. And in our study, we found that about 1 out of every 10 dual enrollment students is part of a CCAP program. And well over 80 students were part of one of these partnerships, and this number has only been growing since we did this study. And our research, as well as Wheelhouse research, has found that CCAP is actually the primary driver of dual enrollment growth over the last few years. And Raquel, who's here representing Pasadena, can share more of the efforts that they are engaging in as part of CCAP dual enrollment. The second type of dual enrollment programs that are offered in California are early college high schools and middle college high schools. And these partnerships are established between high schools and colleges, and allow these high school students to earn both high school diplomas and up to 2 years of community college credits. And early college high schools may partner with a community college, with a CSU or a UC, while middle college high schools are primarily partnering with community colleges. And about 9% of dual enrollment students in our study were part of an early college high school, and about 10% were part of a middle college high school. Our final group includes all other forms of dual enrollment. And so here we found that all community colleges in the state offer other forms of dual enrollment, but there were important differences in how these programs are structured, the student population served, and the student outcomes that we found. So some colleges establish local partnerships between individual schools and colleges. And these programs may have a specific focus or a target population in mind. In other cases, this also includes college level courses taken independently by students. And this approach is also known as concurrent enrollment. And so these typically attract the college-bound students who are seeking advanced coursework. And the majority of the dual enrollment happening across the state through community colleges is actually happening through these other forms. So these locally established partnerships or students doing this independently. And so Brianna here on this panel is actually a good example of how these local partnerships work. Bakersfield College is one of the locally established partnerships that connected with regional high schools to offer these early college opportunities. And for the middle colleges, we have James also to kind of talk more about how efforts in this space work. And for me, one of the motivations for dual enrollment research is actually, I have personal experience. When I was a senior in high school, I took some dual enrollment courses, and I just saw how they played a very important role in my decisions, my success in college, and my college completion. Actually, it took a dual enrollment course that I took my senior year to actually get me my bachelor's degree, because I was able to petition. I was missing an art course, and I was able to petition my dual enrollment course to count for an art requirement. So anyway, I have stories to share on kind of how it really affected and was able to successfully, use my dual enrollment to achieve my college goals. And so, yeah, that's kind of just a brief overview of how dual enrollment works in California and how it's structured.
So I want to open this next question to James and Raquel. Definitely feel open to jumping in. But there's other ways to earn college credit, right? There's AP, there's IB classes. How are those different from the dual enrollment courses you just described?
You want to go first? Or?
Sure, I can explain a little
Sure.
bit. It would the beauty about dual enrollment and all of it, if we kind of look at it as an umbrella term, is that it really provides opportunities. And depending on the student, depending on their family situation, students can then tap into the different access and resources that are available to them. The dual enrollment for us, at Pasadena City College, we are specific. We do CCAPs, like Olga mentioned, right? We go out, we work specifically with the schools, specific course offerings that we work together in partnership with our local high schools or in our school districts. Concurrent enrollment, really, the students are, like she mentioned, on their own. I'm a parent as well. And so my children, when they were in high school, one specifically, took advantage of taking classes in the evening or in the summer and taking advantage of concurrent enrollment coming on their own. AP courses are another, that's a little bit more traditional. We've seen students be able to earn college credit by taking the exam, right? So just because you take the course doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get that AP credit. And it's also on the onus of the college of where a student's going. So dual enrollment, they are college courses, concurrent enrollment, college courses. And so provided the student completes the course, they're going to have a transcript that they're going to be able to take with them wherever they might go. High school articulation is another way to earn college credit. I won't get into that because that's much more complicated, but that's another avenue as well for students to be able to earn college credit while they're still in high school.
And thank you, Raquel. Well said. And so I think one of the things that comes across is that there's an umbrella of college earning credit programs, and there's not a one size fits all. But there are programs that can be targeted to certain student populations. One of the things with CCAP is that it's specifically within the legislation, especially AB 288 before it was reauthorized as AB 30, it really got into how traditionally in some of the concurrent history of concurrent enrollment and other programs that there were populations that were left out and that were underserved and underrepresented. So one of the goals of CCAP, and it doesn't give a specific majority or percentage, but one of the goals of the CCAP legislation is that we would provide seamless pathways and support for first generation underserved, underrepresented populations by being intentional in doing that. And so we know right now, dual enrollment can't really go to scale because we don't even have the number of teachers, or it's still new in a sense. So probably what makes sense to do, and it's an idea, would be to target certain populations for programs like CCAP or like a middle college or like AP or like CTE related to pathways. And to know that you're not limiting access, people can still access concurrent enrollment for some students. You're not limiting access in a sense of everybody can't be part of it. But what we could do is become strategic in messaging which programs are a good match. For example, a middle college program or CCAP might be a good match for our mid-range student that's an avid type student. AP course might be a really good match for a student that's super high performing, high achieving, and has been traditionally just super academically successful. So I don't know if we got to that point yet as a system, but if we did, especially if we became crystal clear on what we were trying to achieve in each of those umbrella programs that are college credit earning, I think we could get closer to people understanding that there are many opportunities to earn college credit. They're not competing against each other. What they're doing is they're targeting populations so that we have the ultimate goal of accessing more students to college towards career, because college is just a tool, in that we provide navigational support to get there.
And James, you kind of are alluding to this, but I think that dual enrollment has been perceived for a very long time now as something that is only for high achieving students.
Yes.
But it sounds like it is for everyone. And I wonder if maybe you all can talk, and Brianna, definitely feel free to jump in. Are these courses for every type of student?
Yeah, I think they are for every type of student. Personally, me, when I was going to high school, I took both AP classes and dual enrollment classes. And now looking back at it as a graduate student attending national, I wish I would have taken more dual enrollment classes. And at the high school I went to, they offer dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment classes to everybody, whether you were a high achieving student or not. They pushed everyone to at least take one. And thankfully to the location of my school, Bakersfield College is right behind us. So the counselors there, like Alma Feathers, was very, very helpful when it came to pushing all the students, not just high achieving or honor students. They were really good with pushing everyone to take these classes. And I think that they're for everyone. If the student's willing to put in the work, I think they could pass the classes and get the college credit.
I'll jump in to add that from our study, we had a question about AP versus dual enrollment, and I agree with James. I think there was a consensus that providing students with college acceleration options is kind of the way to go. But there was a perception that for you to access AP, you had to be on this AP honors track from very early on, whereas dual enrollment had more of an equitable access perception that it just more equitable access to it, because you didn't necessarily have to be on a particular track to access the courses. Yes, so I think that's key, and I think Brianna's example and kind of how encouraging students to access these opportunities is important. And I agree with James that I think there is definitely an opportunity to target and identify and match students, because all students deserve the opportunity to accelerate their pathway through college through these opportunities that they can get in high school. And I'll also add what the research says about whether dual enrollment is for everyone. And the research says yes. So one of my very first research projects as a graduate student at the Community College Research Center was actually a study of California Concurrent Courses Initiative. And this was a 3-year initiative funded by Irvine. And the aim of this program was to expand access to dual enrollment for students struggling academically or underrepresented in higher education. And if you know AB 288, and as James noted, the population and the goal was very similar. So both of these should sound familiar. And so the Concurrent Courses Initiative included 8 partnerships across the state where career-focused dual enrollment opportunities were provided to students in areas in pathways like health, teaching, and multimedia, among others. And so they provided a mix of career-focused dual enrollment as well as academic courses like sociology and psychology. And given the population served, it also included a variety of academic and non-academic supports. And what we found is that compared to otherwise similar students in this Concurrent Courses Initiative who took these dual enrollment courses were more likely to graduate from high school, persist in college, and less likely to take basic skills and accumulated more college credits. And so these were not necessarily the students who were already on the AP track, and they kind of reflect the population that we want to serve with CCAP. So I just want to flag that we do have research. And of course, like just the research in California and nationally is also very clear that giving access to dual enrollment opportunities is good for both high school and college outcomes overall. So targeting the expansion to groups that haven't traditionally been served with limited resources, I think is a kind of a good strategy forward as well.
I did want to jump in. There's lots of questions coming from the audience. So thank you everyone who are submitting really thoughtful questions. And maybe this is to start for Raquel and maybe James and anyone else, Brianna and Olga, you can jump in as well. The question being about establishing relationships with business partners and how can you get business partners interested to support dual enrollment programs? And are there any examples of business partners that are providing financial support that really helps make the programs worthwhile?
That's an excellent question. From Pasadena, we're not quite there yet. We are working on a non-CCAP agreement with one of our independent schools in Pasadena. They have established relationships with some of the business or industry in our area. And so those students will be able to tap in to that. And it's really, they're still working on this partnership as well. And so they've spearheaded this partnership between Pasadena themselves as an independent high school and some of the local industry. And this is particularly in the health sciences, health field. And so they're developing that. And it's exciting to see that come to fruition and see where that's going to go. It's still new. I'm interested to see how that's going to work once we get to the point, and this is a developed pathway, once we get to the point where the students are going to need internships or externships and that experiential learning, they are putting into place where that will be able to be done at this facility that they have in mind. Yeah.
I'm going to agree with Raquel that we're not there yet. And it really has been an interesting evolution, really. We started off and we were really a program that was focused on getting college credit, earning AAs, IGETC. And then we realized that really college is a tool to get towards your career, and career ought to be the goal. And so a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, we had 60% of our kids in internships and externships their junior and senior year, and they were highly successful. And then it died with the pandemic and distance learning. So that's a goal we're bringing back, because we do realize that, especially at a middle or early college, it is a gap for our students not to have that real world experience. And I know one of the goals of supporting successful college coursework with pathways is that whole idea of continuing learning in your career. So it's just an area we have to work on. But as we envision, I think it's perfect to look that direction and to give our students those experiences, because honestly, for underserved populations, underrepresented populations, and first generation college students especially, they don't have that social capital. They don't have those experiences as a whole. And so the more we can give them those experiences and teach them how to navigate through, the more we're going to achieve our goals, I believe.
I think we're also, just one more thing, we're also seeing that that development also with our apprenticeship programs. I know that PCC, we're a recipient of 5 apprenticeship programs that we just learned of. One of them is in partnership with a program that we're working, a pathway with education in Pasadena Unified School District. So that's something that I'm hoping we'll be able to, again, bring to fruition.
I want to ask a question from one of the members of the audience, and it's related to establishing these programs. And Raquel, I think maybe you should talk about your experience between Pasadena and working with high schools, because we saw our analysis revealed that there's a lot of variables, that the availability of courses and programs, it really depends on the school you go to, the district you live in, the college that they've partnered with. So what exactly did you all do in Pasadena to build your relationships there and establish your dual enrollment programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because it's all based on relationships. And so I like to think, and I tell our partners this, we use a boutique style approach, and we understand that all of our high schools are very different. Their populations are different, the types of programming they offer, to what extent, whether it's accelerated, the culture of their high school is very different. And so we like to meet with our partners and hear from them. What is it? What is it about their culture? A lot of our schools also have academies. And so the extent that we can partner on how can we enhance what's already being done at your high school. We're not there to replicate. We're not there to duplicate services. And so how can we work together so that the students can really take advantage of what's already there at the high school and what can be done locally through Pasadena City College? And so in doing that, what we have found, again, we found the academies that are taking place at the high schools, as well as the vision of the administration, kind of what's their wish list and how can we work together on this, as well as the student need. We have some of the best practices we have found is when the schools survey their students. And it's just as easy as a Google survey, trying to find out what is interesting for the students. What do they want to learn? What would bring their attention? And this is also about access, because it's not just the top students. They're opening it up to all the students. And so we have been able to really develop those partnerships, come back and meet regularly with one school in particular, with other schools too. But their first year that they started with dual enrollment, we were meeting on a regular basis, like weekly, half hour, just to make sure that we are having that communication. We're talking to our partners. They're hearing back from the students. We're bringing in our faculty, understand what they're doing as well, and how can we make sure that this is a stronger partnership. So a school that may start off with 2 courses, the following year is coming back and asking for 4 or 5 courses. And so we're at that point now where we've really developed relationships with all of our local high schools, and the demand, we're exploding. There's been an explosion in dual enrollment, but it really is about the relationship building and understanding what that school needs, what the students need, and how are we able to work together, bringing in our academic deans. It's not just I'm a dean and I'm doing dual enrollment, but ultimately I'm working with my partners across my campus to make sure that we're able to fulfill the need of the high school. That if they're asking for a particular course, if we're developing a pathway, it's not just for 1 year. A pathway takes commitment from our institution long term. If we're going to go in and do a broadcasting or a TV radio program, we need to make sure that we are committed as a partner, as Pasadena City College, to be able to bring that to fruition. It's not just 1 year.
Thank you, Raquel. I know, Brianna, there's a question directed, I think, for you that you're open to answering in terms of how community college counselors can best communicate the dual enrollment opportunities to high school students. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and it kind of ties into what Raquel was saying about the building the relationships between the colleges and the high school. From the high school that I went to, and from my personal experience, we did have a really good relationship with the Bakersfield College behind us. So that did really help a lot of students want to become a part of the dual enrollment courses, because they felt like they were able to always contact them. And if they ever needed any type of assistance when it came to taking a college class as a high school student, it did help a lot. And doing things like hosting different assemblies, having personal or guest speakers go and talk about dual enrollment can really help them create that relationship and want to become a part of the program.
And just to build upon Brianna and Raquel's ideas, so while I think student voice was mentioned, man, it's so critical just to hear our students. We have venues where we literally hear from them every single Tuesday, and we have to get their current voice on things. But just to touch on a couple of things that Raquel shared. One, you talked a little bit about vision and different high schools knowing their why, and then you coming along and supporting that. If a dual enrollment program, whether it's a CCAP or it's a middle college, and we're talking about equity and access. If people don't know their why are they doing dual enrollment? It's going to be very difficult to sustain it because it's so complex. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it is complex. There's lots of moving parts. And so beginning with the vision, that's a common vision between the high school and the college partner, where they understand what they're trying to achieve in a sentence, understanding maybe the mission. It might be a navigation goal for helping students learn navigation, and understanding the goals. It might be college ready, industry prepared, SEL lifelong learners and global leaders, whatever it is. But to have a common why super helps, especially during the difficult times like an unexpected world pandemic and distance learning. Because if you know your why and it's clear, that doesn't really change. The context might change, the needs might change, but if you have a common vision, it's not going to change. So I noticed that a lot of programs are struggling because they don't have a clear vision to their program. Second thing is, you talked about partnerships. We have to be intentional and we have to design our time together. We have to design it. Raquel, you said you guys meet weekly, and I know we meet weekly and every other week, different groups, different size groups. My college and career lead talks to the college daily. There's a regular relationship that creates the alignment and the coherence to support our students. So being intentional about the partnership. If we're not intentional, it doesn't have to be in person. It could be like this, it could be virtual. But if we're not intentional about the partnership, and if we don't have a common why, it's going to be super difficult to sustain our programs. And it's interesting that the RFAs on the recent grant for early and middle colleges, and then also for CCAP, really, those are the first two things you deal with, is vision and then partnership. And then you get into, pathways tied to dual enrollment and so on and so forth, and finish with sustaining. But because those are the things that make a program successful. And if you don't have them, it's going to be very difficult, even if you're well-intentioned.
I want to shift a little bit and talk about getting instructors for dual enrollment programs, because James, you alluded to this, and I know that our analysis, we found that finding instructors can be challenging, and that is one reason why these programs are limited across the state. And so I'm wondering, and I'm opening this question up to all of you, if maybe you can talk a little bit about, finding instructors at the high school level who have the credentials to teach college courses, or encouraging professors to go into high schools and teach. What is that experience like, and what challenges have you all encountered?
That has been there's lots of challenges. That's definitely one of the challenges that we found, and are still having it. And especially because like I mentioned, we're exploding. We're trying to meet the demand that we're getting from our high schools. But so there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of variables in assigning faculty. Right now, the majority of our dual enrollment faculty are adjunct part-timers. We have our full-time tenured faculty who have been traditionally teaching college age students their entire career. And so this is a shift for them. They don't know what to expect. They really don't know what it is. And so we've had a few takers, folks who enjoy being in the community, want to be with high school students. Full-timers have come out. Most of them have liked it. And so they've continued to join us with dual enrollment. We recently brought in a reassigned faculty coordinator full time. And so he is our biggest cheerleader with faculty. So he's literally getting on the phone, calling his colleagues from throughout different divisions and selling dual enrollment. And so we've been very fortunate that we have been able to get some full-timers who will accept 1 or 2 classes as part of their load. Also, we have to honor our collective bargaining agreement. And so every community college has a different agreement with their local union. And so being mindful of what are the rules when it comes to assigning faculty, how many, what they are accepting as their assignments. And so it's a puzzle, right? And putting it together. We have been much more intentional. And so if you go look at our announcements for our faculty positions, our announcements now have that we are looking for folks who have dual enrollment background or experience and are interested in going into our local high schools to teach dual enrollment. That's huge. That was a big step. And so we are again aligning to be able to meet the obligations of our partnerships. But there's lots of variables going on with that.
I could jump in to share a little bit about what our research found. It actually found this as one of the key barriers to promoting equitable access to dual enrollment. And part of the challenge is identifying instructors who are able to meet the minimum qualifications defined by the Chancellor's Office. There's a whole booklet on their website where you can kind of go through and see what the minimum qualifications are for all subject areas. As you can imagine, there's greater difficulty for academic courses like English and math because instructors must have master's degrees to teach those courses. And in fact, from our study, one of the things that we found is that one of the key drivers for career focused ed and kind of the growth there in CCAP, for example, is that it's easier to get high school instructors certified to teach those courses because it's the experience is kind of a key component of getting certified instructors in that area. And so for our report, one of the recommendations that we had is to, in order to equitably expand these, is to identify and find those instructors. And one strategy that we learned about to help address this, and which we thought was actually very intentional and very kind of research driven. So there's a lot of research from California and across the country on the importance of completing math and transfer level math and English in order to kind of move towards your goal of college completion and transfer. And so there are a couple of initiatives happening supported through the K-16 regional collaboratives in the Fresno, Bakersfield area, kind of the Central Valley, where they're actually helping high school teachers upskill and get their master's degrees in math and English in order for them to teach these dual enrollment courses. So they're using their resources from these collaboratives to support getting these minimum qualifications. And another thing we kind of, I think there needs to be an exploration and a questioning of why these policies, right? Like we have high school instructors who are teaching these honors AP courses, which are also supposed to be college level. How can we use them as possible alternative pathways to have them teach these dual enrollment courses as well? So yeah, I think there's an opportunity to explore why the policy is the way that it is, and definitely working within kind of the limitations that you have unions and others that might need to be involved. But yeah, that's all I have to add here.
There is another question from the audience regarding online versus in person, especially when dealing in rural areas where having in person might be more of a challenge. The community college is not right behind as it was for Brianna's case. I'm just wondering, James and Raquel and Olga, is there any examples there in terms of how online is being used in dual enrollment, or is it?
Yeah, so I know the research is still out. I heard Alex Perry a little while back from College and High School Alliance, and he said, the research, they're doing it right now. But anecdotally, I know for us, was very difficult for our students and versus in-person learning that was in seat where we could teach them how to navigate through college. And a lot of my peers had those same challenges. At the same time, I know there are rural areas where the only way you could really access dual enrollment classes is online. So my thought is, and it's just a thought, is that the support systems would have to be super well designed in terms of intentionally looking at what are the barriers for the first generation college student in terms of online learning. And then you'd want to create things in advance. Damage prevention is better than damage repair. You'd want to create support systems in advance for students that are taking online coursework, especially first generation. Not everybody thrives in it. And to make sure that they're successful. So I do believe students can be successful in online coursework, but if they're left to themselves without special support, in my observations and doing this for 10 years, there was a real change and there were many more students that were having less success and really it took some time for us with our college partners to provide the support systems where we eventually were able to turn it around. But boy, we got hit hard initially. It was hard for students in terms of their motivation and in terms of their navigation and in terms of they lost some of the relationship building with their professors. There were just a lot of barriers. But can it be done? I absolutely believe it can be done if best practices are followed. And there's groups out there that offer, learning and best practices like CCMC has their Dual Enrollment Leadership Academy. And there's places where you can learn how to design programs that support all students.
We work with our high schools in what they request. And so as we've come back from the pandemic, our high schools are not asking for online. We may do a hybrid, but they're really still asking for in-person classes. And so we haven't seen the requests come in from the high schools that they are wanting online. Now, many of our students do concurrent enrollment. And so they're able to take an online course if that's what they choose, right? And so we are seeing that. We're also seeing some students who take dual enrollment at their high school, and then they're also enrolling in online concurrent enrollment courses. So it's a little bit different, but that's the beauty of CCAP, because the student is able to take up to 15 units during one term. And so it may not all be through the CCAP agreement. They're taking concurrent enrollment as well.
I'll jump in because we delved a little bit into this in our research, and as has been noted by James and Raquel, one way to broaden access is for dual enrollment is through online courses, especially in rural communities. And I think the pandemic really accelerated this, as for just more broadly and more generally. But I think this was something that we heard that people were wanting to do. Some community colleges wanted to experiment with this, and the pandemic provided them this opportunity. And so more broadly in community colleges and probably in dual enrollment, it's not going to go away. So finding effective ways to do it is going to be key. And as James noted, the support structures and the support systems need to be built in to ensure that students are successful. Some challenges, some of the things that, some of the opportunities I think that online provides is that students who couldn't previously participate because of prior commitments like extracurricular activities or work now could participate, especially if they're like asynchronous courses. Also, however, there could be technological barriers, so those would need to be addressed. There's also concerns that students underserved in higher ed are also kind of more likely to not do as well in online programs or online courses. There's an pretty much growing consensus that access to dual enrollment is good for college outcomes and completion. Fully online programs or kind of a high share of online courses is what has been shown to not be as productive and helpful for student success. So I think there is a potentially a right balance for students. And as Raquel noted, there are some students that are doing dual enrollment, some of them are face-to-face, and having that online option helps them get to those 15 credits in some cases. I do have an example to share from what we learned in our research. So one innovative approach that we learned about that addresses kind of this technological, logistical, and academic support challenges are that once high schools opened up, some colleges were able to provide online dual enrollment in study hall type environments. So they were using high school classrooms. Students were signing on to their online courses, and the high school teacher was there embedded as a support to help answer questions. So it's kind of, I saw it as an effective use of effective and equitable use of high school and college resources, because this is a college that community colleges want to offer. High schools want this to be offered to their students, and we have teachers who are already potentially teaching in these areas. And so they're available there to answer questions and help guide the student, connect them to the resources. And the great thing is that students at that level have access to high school student supports and student academic and student supports, and also community college student and academic support. So I think having an adult kind of help navigate this, as James and others have noted, is key to ensuring the success of in dual enrollment generally, but especially in online courses.
And we've had a couple of questions from the audience related to the CSUs and the UCs. And so, Olga, just wondering, from the research that you've all done, can you talk a little bit about any dual enrollment programs or offerings that the four-year universities may have?
Four-year universities are not very active in dual enrollment. There are some early college partnerships. I think Long Beach has probably kind of a more established CSU Long Beach. I think the cost barrier, it's more expensive to provide dual enrollment through a UC or CSU. So I think when we have conversations, for example, with the CSU, one of the first comments we get is actually, we're not participating. It's not something we do as much because of the cost, because of how much it costs for students to take these courses, or kind of even if it were free. I think that just the cost associated with providing a CSU or UC dual enrollment course is higher. So we haven't seen it as much. The beauty of offering it through community colleges is there's like all the lower division courses that a student could want to take at a UC and CSU are available through a community college. And typically in a smaller class size, at a local community college, or through a remote access. And also, if you are doing concurrent enrollment, there is now what is known as the California Virtual Campus, where you could potentially take a dual enrollment in any place, in any community college in the system, not just your home campus. And if you go to the website, you actually could look for a course based on I get C or CSU breadth. And so all those courses are A through G as well. So they would kind of count towards your high school and UC and CSU lower division general education requirements. So I think, so anyway, I don't know if that answers the question, but I think there are some exciting opportunities to use dual enrollment to ensure that students are making progress towards their four-year degree.
I wanted to go back, if I may, Ashley, to the question regarding access to enough teachers for dual enrollment. And so one of the things, that I've just thought about thinking aloud here is it seems like if we want to solve the challenge long-term, the barrier, that we should really be encouraging teacher prep programs to have students work towards their master's in the subject area, so that they would be available to teach dual enrollment coursework when they get to that point of readiness. So it seems like as long as we have our credential programs, have people get masters in instruction and in administration embedded into their teaching credential, it seems like we're missing an opportunity. And that teacher might be missing an opportunity, because if this thing goes to scale broader, bigger than it is now, then we already know what the need's going to be. So why wouldn't we be preparing teachers for the upcoming need as we expand. And I don't know that that message has gone out to credentialing programs, but I think that would be helpful. It doesn't mean everybody that gets, a master's in art or English or math is going to be hired by the college, because Raquel might say, you're not very good. But at least we would have a pool to draw from.
And then I actually want to go back because we've been talking about supports for students. And there was a question from the audience asking about what that support looks like. And Brianna, I wonder if maybe you could talk a little bit about when you were taking dual enrollment classes, what additional support or counseling or advising or help did you receive?
I feel like personally from my experience, a lot of the support that I received was from my parents. My parents were super supportive when it came to taking college classes and just being there for me. I know I would have days where I was just so stressed out, and just them being there for me really, really helped. Also, the counselors at my high school, they were very supportive when it came to talking to us about the certain classes that were transferable into like the CSUs that we were going to apply to. For example, I'm going to school for teaching, and so my counselor would partner up with the counselors from BC, and they would tell me the different classes that I was gonna be able to take as a high school student that would transfer into a CSU. So those strategies were really, really helpful. But overall, it was just my parents who were really helpful when it came to me taking these classes and them just pushing me to do my absolute best.
There is a question from the audience, and this is open to the whole group in terms of, is there a sense of dual enrollment classes during the day embedded in the high school versus those after school, and any difference between between both in terms of success, in terms of engagement with the high school students?
So we do both. We have John Muir has their early college program, and we have our PCC Northwest satellite. And so they very similar to what was already described. They're pretty much on the same property, right? And so students come and go. They are taking courses throughout the day. In fact, John Muir High School students don't take dual enrollment courses on our Northwest campus during or after school. If they're going to take additional classes, they're taking them concurrently. And so that's very much the early college model. The rest of our schools will vary. Some schools are taking classes throughout the day, and other schools are after school. It really is kind of where we're at with that high school. Depending on some of the schedules, the high schools themselves have found that it's going to be more productive and more, it's easier to operate if the course is held after school. So we will work with that school independently to determine what's going to be the best route. So we are doing both. We are seeing, other than John Muir, we are seeing some of our other schools decide to offer courses during the day. It does get a little bit tricky depending on their schedule, if they're block schedule, if they're traditional Monday through Friday type of class, that goes into what are we looking at in terms of scheduling. And that's also where the faculty barrier comes in as well. Our faculty are teaching other college courses. And so a Monday through Friday schedule in the middle of the day we may not be able to find someone versus an early morning. So these are all of those pieces of the puzzle that we're working with directly with our high schools to determine what might work best. That may be a challenge to the student. I know that there was a question or a concern about students who are in extracurricular activities, who are in sports. That may limit what they are doing with dual enrollment and whether they're going to be able to take courses if we are only offering courses in after school or in the afternoon or in the evening. That is the conversation that we have. Depending on what the situation is for the student. So our faculty are very much in line with, if you're taking a college course, regardless of where that college or where the course is being offered, you're still a college student. And so there's that conversation about the student, encouraging the student to go have that conversation with the faculty to say, I'm on a sport, this is how it's going to impact. And then together they have that conversation about whether this course is going to be conducive for a student who is participating in other activities. Sometimes we found that it's going to be fine because of the schedule of the student, the schedule of practice, the games. Other times it's that hard conversation to let the student know this is part of being a college student. You got to make decisions and you have priorities. And ultimately, these are still high school students. I look at it from a mental health situation as well. I don't want to add more stress to a student. I want them to be young. I want them to enjoy the activities that they want to be participating in, because it's growth in terms of their personal growth and development as human beings. And so it is having those conversations. And whether it's the high school counselor having that conversation with the student, perhaps it's the faculty member who's assigned there. But it is really what's in the best interest for that student in terms of their own academic endeavors as well as personal growth.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Raquel, because like even when we're interviewing students for our program, we always tell them we're not the only game in town. And we may not be a match for you. If you're a scholar athlete, we're probably not a match for you. Go be in MYP classes, AVID classes, AP classes, and be a scholar athlete. So sometimes everybody thinks we have to do everything because it's available. We don't. We have to do what's best for the student, and they're part of that decision making. Sometimes there's pressure from first generation college parents in terms of, their kid has to earn an AA, or they have to earn their IGETC or their FAIRs. And the truth is that nationally, we know that when a student takes even a couple of college classes with success, that they're much more likely to graduate from college and have that college completion, even at a 4-year college. So sometimes we have to realize kids can't do everything. And I want to go back to the support question. The support question is so critical. Some of the things that we do that can be done in CCAP programs, even though we're in middle college, is we could take cohorts of CCAP students and we could provide for them things like, especially if we know they're first generation, they've been targeted, we could provide for them a homeroom where they're going to be supported and monitored. We can provide for them counseling on both the high school and the college side. We can provide for them mentors, both on the college and the high school side. We can progress monitor them through college early alert systems, through high school early alert systems, and then intervene before it's too late. I know one of the things that we do is we have progress reports that are college progress reports that every single student has to turn in from every class prior to the midterm, prior to the middle of the semester, so that we're able to intervene and before it's the end of the semester. So there's things we can do here, because we're a middle college model. We have a school-wide 6-period tutoring period where every student has access to every high school teacher, because our first goal, our default is that students meet their A to G requirements, and then obviously that they're successful in their college classes. So we just build in things that are support. Our college counselors create a 5 to 8 page college ed plan that's reinformed every single semester with the student that works towards their career, where they identify what's the wish list of classes that a student might take towards their career. And then it's progress monitored every semester. How are they doing? And because one of our goals is to teach students not only to, we don't want them to do the schedules on their own when they're registering for classes, and we don't want to do it for them. We want to do it with them. So the college ed plan becomes a real support piece for first gen students. So there's lots of, that's just a couple. We're always thinking in terms of support and intervention, timely, quick, and helping students. We know they're going to stumble and fall, because one of the things I did want to say about college classes is in the partnership, we have to teach our parents and students that college classes are not high school classes. They're hard. And if we lower the standard of those classes, it's not equitable. We have to raise the support, not lower the standard. And those college classes aren't college and high school classes. They are college classes. And one of the ways we gain credibility as the high school side with the college is by making sure that that's communicated, that mindset is messaged. And even when we're talking about taking college classes during high school, that 50 minutes, that's a college class. And so one of the challenges for high schools is, I think one of the reasons they do it as 0 or 7th period is because they have to get their 240 instructional minutes. Unless they're a middle or early college, then they can have less, 180 minutes. But they have to get those minutes in. So if you have classes throughout the day, you have to monitor each individual student to make sure they're getting the right instructional minutes. Otherwise, the high school is in jeopardy of not being a high school and not being accredited. So it's tricky. We can learn to navigate through it. I know some high schools, they'll pick a third period or a fifth period that they'll make the dual enrollment period. And that's one way for them to monitor their minutes. But everything's doable. We just have to think in terms of intervention and support. And we have to think in terms of broad safety nets. And our kids are flying the trapeze. They're going to fall. And we're going to teach them how to climb back up the rope. And we're going to teach them how to reach the other ladder and eventually be able to perform at a high level. But we have to build in those supports.
Brianna, I see that your hand is up. Did you want to add on to that?
Yes, I wanted to add on to what Raquel was saying about students feeling really overwhelmed when it came to dual enrollment courses, and still trying to balance that social life, especially in high school. Everyone just wants to be able to do sports and all these like really fun activities while being a college student as well. And when I was in high school, I actually cheered for 4 years, and my senior year was the year that I took 3 dual enrollment classes for my during high school. And during that year, I was on my high school cheer team and an All-American cheer team where we went to London to perform. So during these things, these activities, what really helped me was just my counselors, being in partnership with the BC counselors or any other counselors within the programs that we were going through, just because they would help us make schedules that worked for us. They would always like call us in and ask us like, hey, can you take this class, or do you have practice during this class? And a lot of the professors were really understanding. And for myself, when I was taking dual enrollment classes, they were a lot easier than AP classes. I feel like everyone just really emphasized the AP exam and trying really, really hard to pass that exam so that you did get the college credit. So just based on my experience, I felt like dual enrollment was a lot, not necessarily easier, but we had a lot more support rather than in AP classes.
Olga, you wanted to say something?
I'll just kind of second everything Brianna said. And like, that was my experience as well. Like, I was also taking other AP courses, and I had an after school job. Let's see. Yeah, so I had a full load. I was also my sophomore and junior year. I was in the Partnership Academy of Business, so I didn't play sports. So that was my thing. But this other array of kind of academic activities, kind of and dual enrollment and AP kind of both give you that bump on your GPA for your college admissions. So I just want to flag that AP, and they give you an extra point and kind of boost your chances of getting into a four-year university. And so I think it just providing students the opportunity and connecting them and knowing them where they can access support if necessary, I think is the key. And I mean, I think students will rise to high expectations. I mean, you give them the opportunity to like access a course that is going to give them a sense of being a college student, tell them, hey, you're going to take this course. If you pass it, you get college credit, as opposed to, hey, this is a really high stakes test. If you don't pass it, the whole year you just spent in AP English is going to go down the drain. No, I think the change with dual enrollment is like you're going to take this course for a semester, and guess what? You're going to get a year's worth of high school and meet a key general education requirement, and you just have to get a C or better. And these are all the supports that we have available to support you to complete this successfully. So yeah, and to Brianna's point earlier about like who was your support, I would agree that having your family on board, your parents, is key, because at the end of the day, like she said, you're doing your homework, you're kind of making sure that your papers are written, and if they know kind of the importance of the course and for your future, they'll support you. They'll make sure you have the necessary study space, study time to get your work done. So yeah, just the importance of engaging the family and especially, in their language. For me, it was Spanish. College going information was key in Spanish. So.
Yeah, to add on to Olga, my little brother is actually taking dual enrollment classes. He's a junior in high school right now, and he's planning on graduating with his AA already. And whenever he's having a lot of trouble with his homework or he's just stressed out about an assignment or an essay, he always comes to me for help, and I'm always just kind of there for him and kind of telling him like, you got this, you can do it, like just trying to be the best support. And he always tells me like, without you, like I don't think I'd be doing as good as I am doing. So that's really heartwarming for me, because I know when I was going to college, my parents were there and stuff. So I just want to be that type of, I guess, voice for him, just to tell him to keep going. So having your family there as assistants when taking these classes is just really, really important, and kind of bringing everyone as a community together to help the student.
Well, I would just like to jump in. We are actually at the hour. It's already 5 o'clock. Hard to believe. I really want to thank each and every one of our panelists. There's also a team of folks working behind the scenes who have been trying to answer questions in the chat. To our audience, I think we have more than 120 questions, well above. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you again. Thank you, Ashley, for your wonderful moderation. Hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday. Please stay dry.